Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Gersovich. I'm the president and founder of Key Ministry. And I would like to welcome you to this last video in our series on developing a mental health inclusion strategy for your church. And so I want to talk about taking the first step. In that, if you've read through the book that our ministry developed on mental health in the church, and if you've seen the other videos in the series, a lot of times, you may agree with the need for this, recognize the purpose for having such a ministry, but figuring out how you take the first step is oftentimes a big struggle. And so that we want to offer the opportunity to think about, now that we've processed all of these ideas, and you better understand some of the struggles that, individuals and families impacted by mental illness have in being part of the church, and being part of those activities specifically that, help us to mature spiritually. How do you do something about it where God has placed you in your local church? And so let's talk a little bit about first steps, and then I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, how our ministry can come alongside you as you seek to be able to, to be intentional about welcoming families affected by mental illness in your local community. If you're a senior pastor who's been watching these videos or has read the book, what I would encourage you to do first is to just pray and seek God's will and seek discernment, in terms of where He may be leading you to take this within the context of your congregation. And I would then be very intentional about reaching out to any other staff members that you have at your church, as well as people who are on your board or in leadership, to get their buy-in and to get their support for what you're looking to do with the ministry. If you're watching this and let's say you're an associate pastor, or you're a staff member, or a children's ministry director, or a student ministry director, or a senior volunteer at church, the first thing that you should do is to go and seek out your senior leadership and to get their blessing and to get their permission in terms of, developing this type of ministry strategy. First off, it's important for you folks to understand, if you're watching this, that, having, known a lot of pastors myself and having served on 2 different church boards, that folks in leadership in churches have more cool ministry opportunities at any given time to pursue than they necessarily have money or volunteers to be able to, to follow up with those plans. And so, if you approach your church leadership about this and they end up saying no or not now, it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It means that they're wrestling, as leaders in the church, with the kinds of struggles that we need to every day, and that we have more urgent ministry priorities to address than we have resources to be able to address them. So, so what do you do, if you're not a church leader? If you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, if you're, someone who, regularly attends church every week, loves the Lord, feels called to do this, but you're not necessarily in a position of influence in your church, or your church doesn't see this necessarily as something that they're able to move forward on. One of the things to think about here is that you can take the principles that we've described in all of these videos and that we discuss in the book, and you can think about how you might be able to develop your personal ministry. Your church has a mental health ministry if you're doing mental health ministry wherever God has happened to place you. And, I would encourage you to think about being the church wherever you've been planted. One way of doing that, or one way of offering to help in your church, is to offer to serve as a mental health liaison or a mental health advocate, along the lines of what Catherine Boyle from Outside In Ministries has described, on their website and in some of their training that they've offered for us at Key Ministry. In that, can you be in a position, to help connect folks up in your church and outside of the church with needed mental health resources and support resources in their community? Can you be a person who helps provide respite to families who are struggling? To help them get connected up with professionals and counselors who can help, when they're in the midst of a mental health crisis? where you can help people who may be struggling with a mental health condition, to be able to assimilate into specific ministries or specific activities within your church. All of those things, are things that you can do, with the guidance of the Holy Spirit and with some of the resources that are available out there now in terms of being able to understand the need, of some of like the kids and families and adults that enter into your sphere of influence. So I think it's important for us to understand that, we weren't meant to do ministry alone. And our team at Key Ministry very much, puts these resources out, with the intent that we're committed to coming alongside you, as your church looks to implement some sort of mental health inclusion strategy and to do purposeful mental health ministry. I think it's important, again, to remember as we think about this, that no church is going to be able to welcome, every kid, every adult, every family that is impacted by mental illness. But every church can do something more than what you're doing right now. And we stand prepared to be able to support that. So we have an entire area of our website that we've created just filled with mental health resources, specifically to help support the information and to supplement the information that's available, through the book, and that we've made available specifically through these videos. So that, if you go to Key Ministries website, you'll find, a list of other mental health ministries that have useful resources, for your inclusion strategy or inclusion project. One of the things that you'll find is lots of social media resources for being able to share information about, mental health conditions and to be able to position your church as a place in your community that has a reputation for being interested in welcoming folks who are wrestling with mental illness. One of the things that we do routinely is that, we put on conferences ourselves. We're oftentimes invited to different churches around the country to participate at training conferences. If you follow our Twitter account and follow our Facebook, and follow our website, you'll be aware of some of the different places that we're going live to be able to train on these issues. This is the 14th video, in a series that we're going to be making available through Key Ministries' Vimeo page as well as our YouTube page. And if you happen to stumble upon this video first, I'd encourage you to go back and look at some of the other resources that we've developed. One of the things that we've been doing with mental health on the church is that we have been hosting book studies on Facebook, specifically for folks who are looking at taking a deeper dive into some of the themes that we discussed, in the Mental Health in the Church book. So I would encourage you, if you belong to Facebook, to type in your Facebook search bar, Mental Health in the Church Study Group. Answer the 2 questions that we require of people to be part of one of our groups, and we would be invited to include you in any new groups that we're starting, as well as give you access to some of the things that we've applied through in the past in terms of implementing some of the principles that are discussed in the book. We are available, free of charge to do consultation with your church team through video conferencing. We have a Zoom account. If you're working through these videos or working through the book and there are specific concepts you're having a hard time understanding, some things that you're stuck on, feel free to reach out to us through the Contact Us page on Key Ministries website, and we can see what we can do about developing something specifically to help support your church implement some of these ideas. We can very much help you network with other ministries, and one of the things that we're hoping to make available, at some point during the second half of 2018 is a mental health ministry roundtable made up of leaders, of some of the other like-minded ministries out there that are also looking to welcome and include and support people with mental health needs, as they seek to be part of the local church. We make available lots of social media. We have other resources on our website, examples of how pastors have talked about mental health issues through their sermons and through their preaching in the past. Other research that's available to help support the need for your ministry and to better understand the needs of people who are wrestling with some of these conditions. And we're happy to just listen to you and pray for you, and come alongside you as you seek to pursue this ministry. That, You know, we're honored by the privilege of being able to minister alongside you, you know, and encouraged that God is raising up, you know, people around, you know, around the U.S. and elsewhere, all around the world, you know, who are recognizing the need for, you know, additional support with ministry with, you know, children and adults who are struggling with some of these common mental health conditions, you know, so that they can be part of the church and that they can have the same experience that the rest of us have. So, in closing, you know, I would encourage you to take a look at the resource that we have available through the book that our ministry developed, Mental Health in the Church. You can find our other resources at www.keyministry.org. If you want to follow what we're doing on an ongoing basis, I would suggest that you follow us at Key Ministry, follow our Key Ministry page on Facebook, and if you go to keyministry.org/contact, and you're interested specifically in taking the relationship further, you know, and talking about specific topics or issues or struggles that your church is encountering and wrestling with in implementing mental health ministry, we're happy to come alongside you, support you as we can, and introduce you to other people that we know who may have the answers in those situations where we don't. You know, so again, it's been a great blessing to be able to share these videos with all of you, and I would encourage you not to be strangers and reach out to us at keyministry.org. Thank you.